Hey everybody, welcome to the show. And today, man, I get to interview Everett Warmack, who is a man after my own heart. He's a creative director, and emphasis on creative. And one thing there's something interesting he wants you to know about him. But first, Everett, welcome to the show, man.
Johnny, thank you so much, man. I'm stoked to be here. I'm stoked to be able to connect and have this conversation.
Dude, it's so much fun to just hang out with cool people with cool stories.
Yeah, man.
Uh, and I have no doubt. So one thing you want people to ask you, what's an important thing you want people to know about you? And you really thought about it for a moment, like you did, and I loved it. You're just putting so much attention and insight into it. And you said what you love is that you've been in church context and corporate context, and now that you're in corporate context and you're not doing your creativity isn't a function of vocational ministry, or ministry within the church. It's function of your vocation, but you're often serving the church outside of the church in more of a corporate setting. And there's something about that you love. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. The thing that I realize is like from the time that I like gave my life to Jesus and kind of jumped into church world and I grew up in the church but didn't grow up knowing Jesus. I grew
Yeah.
up just knowing religion.
Yeah.
And so from the time that I really met Jesus, I my heart has been just a local church guy. Like I love the local church. And back in the day, whenever I first like my first creative role was for a nonprofit, and it was a parachurch nonprofit, and so we were serving multiple different churches, but each of us had our own deal that we were doing on Sundays. And the thing that our executive director would always say is that like the only thing that we love more than our church is the church. And I loved that.
Yeah.
That has kind of been baked
Yeah.
into my DNA since that organization. And so I've just loved the opportunities that I've had to be able to serve the church. And at times there have been moments that I've thought like, oh man, like full time vocational ministry is the way to go. And that's what I'm doing with the rest of my life. And then a couple of years ago, I got let go from a church position, and I'm like, okay, I don't know if this is it. Like, I don't know if this is, what I'm supposed to be doing with the rest of my life. I love the church, and if there's a
Yeah.
ministry opportunity, I want to be able to jump in and be a part. But I don't know if like that paying my bills is the end goal
Yeah.
for our lives. And that was a lot of like self discovery and navigating. Like, oh man, like this is what me and my wife like thought we both signed up for, and now it's like different, and it's a lot. But yeah, man, but now in the position that I'm in right now, being able to serve churches, being able to serve nonprofits and small businesses and larger corporations and different things like that with my gifts, talents, and abilities, man, I've loved being able to be that bridge and that type of kind of bridging the gap between people who are serving in the church and people who are serving outside of the church, and I get the best of both worlds in this season. So
Man, that's so cool. And I will also say I like identify with that deeply. You don't know a lot about my story, but I was a pastor for 10 years. Um, and had a healthy, it was time for me to not be a pastor, and it was healthy how it happened. But I ended up in a 3 year, like, who am I? Like, really
yeah,
hard season of trying to understand, like, because I was always a bivocational pastor, so I was a CEO of a company as well. And it was so hard when I didn't have that pastoral outlet anymore, or at least
yeah,
I thought I didn't. I thought,
yeah,
you know, it doesn't count if it's not happening in church walls or with
yeah,
church people or for church reasons. And
yep,
and God took me through a process over three and really recent 3 years. I'm 3 years out. Like
yeah, yeah,
I
man.
don't, but it was so confusing, dude. It was so
Yeah,
weird
dude.
and confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even from like the time that I graduated high school, I was like, man, I'm gonna be in ministry. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do an internship. I'm gonna go to Bible college. I'm gonna do all the things. And on the other side of those 2 years of my internship in Bible college, I'm gonna have a youth pastor job waiting for me, and blah blah blah. That wasn't the case.
Yeah.
I had Chick-fil-A waiting for me is what I
Yeah.
had.
Yeah.
And dude, I like but when I finished, and I got a job in ministry, but not necessarily in the church. I started looking at it as kind of like a stepping stone, and I just don't think. I think there were seasons and moments that I was doing a disservice to that
Yeah.
position
Yeah.
because I was just looking at it. It's like, hey, this is just what I'm doing now until I get to the next thing. But as I was in that position, I realized, like, man, I love the ability and the freedom and the flexibility that I have to serve the church as a whole
Yeah, man.
versus a singular entity.
Yeah.
And in
Yeah.
that season, I did it in the context of a nonprofit and working with young people in schools and different things like that. And in this season, I get to do it and just fully running in, my creative gifts. And so,
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's pretty darn cool. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you're getting to use your creative gifts in the way that you just described?
yeah, absolutely. For a number of different years, I worked in different marketing and creative, like positions in organizations and nonprofits and hospitality, different things like that. And then my most recent, like, kind of full time gig was a creative director at an agency based out of Dallas. And I loved the opportunity. The thing that I realized was, it was a startup agency, and so there were a lot of moving parts. They were figuring things out. I was figuring things out. They really doubled down on video and things like that. Where I was able to sit was really within that, like, branding and kind of creative direction space. And so today I run my own business, doing branding, consulting, creative direction. And I have a handful of clients that I work with regularly that I'm able to help with, social and brand and strategy and lots of different things. Primarily focusing on churches and being able to serve churches kind of in that capacity with art direction and creative direction, but then also working, with a couple different businesses here and there, and then, everything in between the retainers is branding and
Yeah.
websites and
Yeah.
all the things that come with it. So
Yeah. Yeah. So you're a creator at heart.
for sure,
Yep.
for sure.
And so tell me about how that creativity manifests in the world, both in your vocation, your job, but also like in your life, because as creators, we also have to be creating for ourselves, right? So what does it look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I think for work, I'm doing a lot of branding and logo design and art, creation for churches and for business campaigns and things like that. And so it looks a lot like me, just being on my computer a lot during
Yeah.
the day. But
Yeah.
dude, outside of that, man, the thing that I've always realized is, like, I love, like, because of my nonprofit background and the fact that we didn't have big budgets and all the things, I basically had to learn all the tools from the ground up. And so being able to do video, being able to do photography, web design, branding, you name it, I've had a hand in it at some point or another. The thing that I really love outside of, like, things that I'm doing day to day, is really being able to, like, put my hand to photography or other art pieces within, like, my own stuff. I wouldn't even say I'm that good at it. I just, like, it's like if I get to create a video or create, or do, like, photography here and there, or, like, be able to just be outside and, like, play with my kids and draw on the sidewalk. Like, it's
Yeah.
like things like that come out. And
Yeah.
I remember there was we took our sons to this it was like a indoor play place for kids, and they had a big wall with, like, magnetiles, and they had, like, tons and tons of, like, magnetiles that was, like, on a metal wall. And my boys were playing, and I was just chasing them around, and then all of a sudden one of my sons was, like, playing with trucks and playing with magnetiles, and I saw this big wall, and I'm like, I could probably make something that. And so I started, like, making, like, a heart or, like, a,
Yeah.
some sort of shape or something like that. And then one of the girls comes over and she's like, I've never thought to do a mural like that or something like. And I'm like, yeah, it's just, it was like things like that just
Yes.
came, like, out of me, because it was just like I saw a blank canvas and I'm like, ooh, I could do something with that.
Yeah, man. Yes. Now, were you always like that? Were you like that as a kid?
You know, I definitely, as I got into, like, junior high and high school, I was definitely, like, I could see a blank canvas, and I think it's really funny that I look back at like some of my old like journals or binders or whatever from like middle school, and I was really into like kind of alternative like heavy music and things like that. And what I would find is that as I look back at some of those like notebooks or journals, I would draw like the band logos that I like really liked in those journals or on my thing. And one of my teachers one day came up to me, she was like, "Are those gang signs?" And I'm like, no, no, they're not. They're just logos. And I'm like, but I look back and I'm like, all these little logos that I would draw and that I would like try to recreate on my binder, I realize I'm like, oh, that was definitely pointing to, whatever. And then in that same era, I would also like start creating, which is so funny because I never thought myself to be like a creative entrepreneur in any regard. I was always like, oh, I'll be on a team, I'll be the number 2 guy, I'll do whatever. But then as I look back, like even in middle school, I used to make like duct tape wallets and like duct tape backpacks and like purses and things like that. And I would sell them to my friends. And I was like, and I look back and I'm like, that was like my first like creative like entrepreneurial endeavor was duct tape backpacks.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
So yeah, in some way, shape, or form, yes, it was always there.
Yeah, man. Creators got to create, man. And I love how you said that. So when we first talked, right, your formal title is more like a creative director. But I love that creative entrepreneur too, right? And that you kind of, it sounds like you never planned on that, but that is kind of how your life has turned out, which makes sense. So then what did you? So I know you were a part of the Mere Christians community with Jordan Raynor. Were you influenced at all by his books? I know he's got Called to Create. That one was really registered on me. Did any register on you?
Oh yeah, 100%. So I remember back. It was probably, when did that book come out? Like 2018, 2019, something like that.
I wouldn't even know. Yeah.
I stumbled upon it very loosely in like 2020. And whenever I found it, I was like, oh, this is, and I originally thought it was just going to be like a creative book, like something like, Lord's gifting, creativity, art, whatever. But then as I got into it, I'm like, oh, okay, it's about like entrepreneurship and like creating businesses. And at that time, I'm like, oh, I'm not super like, whatever. But as time went on, those principles and those ideas really just stuck with me. And then fast forward to 2023, I was living in Dallas, working for the agency that I was working for, and we ended up hosting a table at an event that Jordan actually was speaking at. Okay. And so it was one of those things where I literally, whenever I heard that it was like whispers of the event happening, I was like, are we going to be there? Are we going to be there? And if not, I'm going to be there because I really want, and like, because I'd followed his work long enough that I like, okay, I read, I read Called to Create. I read Master of One. I like, it was right as Redeeming Your Time came out. And it was just one of those things where I'm like, oh man, I would love to like connect and hang out. And so I ended up like, like cornering him after he talked. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, dude. I just wanted to say hi. Da, da, da. And everyone else in the room was just there because they're like, oh, it's a leadership conference in Dallas, and like this guy's talking about time management and blah blah blah, whatever. And I'm like, but I went up to him and I'm like, yeah, man, I've been like reading, I love Called to Create, blah blah. He's like, oh, you're like a fan, like you like know my stuff. And I'm like, kinda, yeah, I do. I'm twitching a little, No, but I loved it. And so me and him actually got like, he was like about to like take off for a taxi to the airport to go jump on a flight, but we ended up being able to like talk in the foyer of that church, and like he sat down for a super quick lunch, and I just so happened to sit at my table, and it was just one of those things where me and him got to connect on like an actual human level, not just like, hey, I'm a fan, like, and so I ended up being able to actually do some work with him and like be able to, go to one of his retreats and like do some cool things with him. And so he's definitely he's I'm more than a fan now. I'm not just a
Right.
stalker boy anymore.
Right. No, you've been able to kind of sit under and benefit and be transformed by his
Yeah.
ministry. It sounds like, man,
Yeah.
which
And
is
he's just been
awesome.
a really amazing sounding board as I've been through this process. Because whenever I first met him, I was really in that transitional piece of like going from the agency to going back to work for myself. And he was just super encouraging all along the way, man. So
Yeah. Yeah, man. You got to have those, man. You got to have those mentors. I know I've got a good one in my life. His name is Alan Briggs, and man, this brother, there's just so much of my story that just would not have happened if I did not have this brother in my life that cares
yeah,
about me
totally.
and was willing to give me wisdom out of his experience. So, shout out to Alan, man. Um, so then what would you say makes you good at your job? And there's a couple ways to phrase this, but I'm really trying to get at your superpower, right? Like what lights you up? What's that thing that when it just works, it just comes up roses when you do it, it blesses people, it gives you joy. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Dude, I think the thing that I've constantly went back to and realized, I heard John Acuff talk about the fact that like he's an ideas guy. Like that's his whole thing is like he's bringing ideas to the table. And actually, while I was still at the agency, I had dug into oh my goodness, what is his name? Patrick Lencioni, his
Okay.
Six
Yeah, yeah.
Working Genius book.
That's a
I
good
dug into
book.
that.
That's a
It's
good
so
book.
good, man. And like as much as I love like I'm just always like my mind is just always on to the next thing. So I'm like, you give me another personality test, you give me another
Yep.
whatever, I'm like, I'm gonna dig into it. But that one, man, like more than any other personality test, like and I've probably taken all of them. More than any other one, man. Like I didn't even have to take the test whenever I read that
Yep.
book because
Yep.
I literally got to
You
the end of
knew.
it. I'm like, I know exactly who I am.
You
I
already
know
know.
exactly where
Yep.
I'm at on this spectrum.
Yep.
And dude, I realized like I am the same. Like I am an ideas guy. I'm able to take like if somebody comes to me with a problem, I have no shortage of like resolutions for them. Like I'm able to come and come back and say, hey, here's I know you're asking for like a buddy of mine was starting some like I don't know like resell like company or brand or whatever, and he's like, yeah man, I'm trying to think of a name. I'm like, okay, here's 17 names, pick. I just like that's just how my brain works. I'm
Yeah.
able to like talk through something with somebody, and if they're say like, "Hey, I'm workshopping this, I'm doing this," I'm like, those brainstorming meetings are really where I thrive. Being
Yes.
able to be at the forefront of an idea, the forefront of a process, the forefront of whatever, and being able to put some input in there to say, "Hey, I know you have this problem. Here are some ideas on how to be able to, form that solution." And sometimes the clients that I work with, sometimes those solutions come through a new logo. Other times, more times than not, it's more complex than that. But the thing that I love is being able to like walk alongside them as we process through those ideas.
Yes.
To be able to say, man, okay, yes, I can help you visually and creatively, but in more ways than that, you also need like help like with your actual business and navigating who you're talking to, who you're trying to reach, who you're connecting with, who you're trying to sell to, and all of those things. Some of those solutions can come through branding and logo and visuals and those things. But more than not, I love being able to just walk with people through their messy processes of their brains.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, man. It's you're kind of a unicorn, man. You have an interesting gift. So can I guess then that it was six types of working genius? Are you invention and wonder? Are you like are you doubled up at the top of the
Close.
funnel?
I no. So I'm actually invention and enabler.
That makes sense. Oh, that's such a good combo, dude. Yes.
So and
Yeah.
it like those like middle
Right.
tiers. So like the wonder and the oh man, what's the fourth one? The
Discernment
uh
and galvanizing and
galvanize. So
yeah.
or sorry, those three middle ones. So
Yeah.
like from wonder to galvanizer. I'm like along for the ride. And then once they're like, okay, let's go, I'm like, sweet, I'm first, I'll help. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. You love to help people.
Yeah, man.
Um,
Which is why I never thought, in that regard, I never thought of myself as like somebody to be an entrepreneur and go out on my own.
yeah.
I
Right.
always saw myself as the number two. Like I was
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, I'll like whatever. Like I never saw, even when I thought like I was going to be pursuing ministry, like I never thought myself like, oh, I'm lead pastor, no, church planter. Like I'm never the guy that I'm like, oh yeah, I want to be the guy. I've always been like, let me be let me support the vision, let me help you do what you're wanting to do. Let me come up with ideas and then just ship it and send it off. Which is why I think, like, I had a conversation with one of our pastors, and he was saying, the thing that I realized is like I'm like my like spiritual giftings and like kind of in that sense is very much so in the like apostleship lane. And so with that, it's like I have, if I have an idea, if I have something, I want to be able to like bring it to life and then
Yes.
send it off.
Yes.
And he was like, that's the hard part with guys like you, is that there's not a super clean space for you in the local church, because you're all about sending off and going to start the new thing.
Dude, which it's a very entrepreneurial gifting too, right? Like there comes that word again.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. And then it also makes sense, some of the ways that you speak, how you love your church, but you also have this fire inside you for the church, the local church, right? Which all makes sense with that. I'm even going to throw something else in here. Like, are you familiar with how to build a story brand?
Yeah.
Donald, are you a fan of that? Like, has that influenced you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I've realized like there are pieces of it that I definitely like take within my own like branding and kind of creative process. And it's something that I always share with my clients of like, hey, I'm not necessarily a certified guide in this or anything, but it's a super awesome thing for you to look into as a business. And now with their like StoryBrand AI and how it like basically builds this like pathway for companies and people and things like that, I'm like, it's brilliant. Like, hire me to do the rest, but just go buy that thing.
Right. Yeah. I've started to be influenced by it as well. But when I hear you talking about like you had this thing in your mind that you were going to be a number two, I love how it positions, right? Saying, hey, if you're a service provider, you're not number one. You are number two. You're the guide.
Yeah, you're the guide. Yep.
They're the protagonist.
100%.
You're the guide, right? And so you intuitively just have lived that out. And so now you're an entrepreneur and a number two and a guide, and all those things just fit with your current profession, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What lights you up the most in your job in a day? Like what are the moments that lights you up the most?
I think when I'm able to like start with a blank canvas and like that like start of the process, and I know for so many people it's like, oh man, that gives me anxiety, and I'm like, yeah, that actually gives me like so much fire. Like I'm like, I have a blank canvas that I can literally do whatever I want with. Yeah. And there's no, like, this isn't the editing phase. This isn't the critiquing phase. This isn't, like, no, this is, like, the ideation phase. Yeah. Like, oh, snap. Like, when I'm, like, starting a logo project or starting a, like, you know, some sort of discovery, and there's, like, nothing there. And it's like all I've been able to pull out from the client is like, you know, 5 words, and you know, like we kind of are in this area of the world and like different things like that. I'm like, okay, cool. Like I have in those phases, I have enough intuition and empathy and like people skills that I'm like, okay, I can build something even with very little information. And if we get to the other end of it and you don't like any of it, then that's okay. We can talk about it then. But in this moment, I get to just go, you know? And so I think that's one of the things that really lights me up. And then I think the other piece is, like, in those, like, whenever I do a discovery session or, like, a creative direction session or, you know, something like that, like, when I'm in those sessions, being able to have conversations with clients that really unlocks them and like unearths what's really inside of them.
Yes.
And I think that's why, like, the nonprofit that I used to work for, we worked with young people, and it was always like, oh man, what are you passionate about? What are you like, what do you want to do after high school? What do you and like I'm very much so a, like, just like you were saying, like a guide and a mentor
Yeah.
at heart. And
Yeah.
so whenever I'm in these like coaching sessions or strategy sessions, like me being able to ask insightful and thoughtful questions that unlock something in them to be able to give like insightful answers, like, man, that yeah, brings a lot of joy to me.
It's so precious, dude. So I can imagine you're in these meetings, you're at the highest level with ideation, right? Like you have no shortage of dreams. It reminds me of The Greatest Show, that song, "A Million Dreams Are Keeping Me Awake." You remember that song?
Yeah,
When I
yeah,
like
yeah.
and I'm like that too, right? Like I go in the shower and I have to take my
Yep.
phone with me because so many ideas hit me
Yeah.
in the shower, and I have to dictate them with my phone because I don't want them to disappear from me, right? Like
Yeah.
so much value, right? Like because that invention gift, it's wildly valuable, man. Like when somebody that just has ideas. Not everybody just has ideas, and you got ideas to spare, like whatever.
Yeah.
I'll throw them out like money, like whatever.
Yeah,
You want some
exactly.
ideas?
Exactly. That's exactly how it feels.
But then you get to be at that level. It goes down the funnel of the organization, right? Into that wonder. You're probably participating in the wonder part two, asking questions, curious. Then it goes to discernment. That's probably not your jam, right? Discernment is like
Yeah.
the people that are like chopping it up and saying yes, no, maybe, plans, whatever,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
galvanizing.
My level of discernment, and granted, I'm not discerning in other parts
Yeah,
of my life,
yeah,
but the like whenever it comes to like ideation and creation and things like that, whenever it comes to the discernment part, I'm like, which one do I like better? That one. Okay, cool. Let's go.
yeah.
And
I
like,
don't know.
and if there's no guardrails on
Yeah,
that, then that's
yeah.
how I would make decisions all day.
Right, right. Just gut all day,
Yep.
right? No data, no
Exactly.
nothing. And
And sometimes I think there's a benefit to that, right? Like if I have enough and like intuition and empathy, like in and of myself in the creative process, like I think that's why there's a lot of times like I end up being the guy that people come to when they like something else broke. Like that was the situation with like the work that I did with Jordan. Like there was
yeah,
something else that happened, and
yeah,
like I was able to like jump in and be like, "Hey, oh yeah, you're working on this. This is where you want to be. Okay, cool. Let me just crank out this logo and like send it back to you and call it good." And I did it over a weekend because it was one of those things where I had enough discernment and intuition and empathy that I was like, "Okay, yeah, oh no, I can do this. Let's go." And then one of my most recent projects, like a client came to me, they were starting a coffee shop, but it was replacing an existing coffee shop, and they had to like churn the branding and signage and like all these things like super fast. And so
yeah.
literally we created an entire brand within 2 weeks and had an
Yeah.
entire rollout of a business within 2 months. And it was like I look at the coffee shop, I walk in it now and I'm like, my gosh, like this happened in like a very
Yeah.
short period of time.
Yeah.
But it was because the client also had a level of trust for me that they
Yes.
were like, hey, you know what, we can't do this. We've seen your work before with other people. We trust your expertise. We trust your judgment. Just run with it. And if it's not hitting the mark, we'll let you know. But until we say no, just keep going. And that's what happened. And that's why it moved so quickly, was because I was able to have that intuition, but then I also had the trust of the client that I was able to work with. So
And that situation is the situation that lights you up, right? Because they're going to get, they're
yes,
like
absolutely.
autonomy. Like, go ahead, go crazy. Blank slate, blank canvas.
Yep.
Do it how you want to do it. We trust you, right? So you've got the
Yeah.
relational trust, which feels good.
Yep.
You've got the ideas. You're definitely not going to come up short when it comes to ideas, right?
Totally.
But then you have the desire to serve through execution, which is the enablement gift, right?
Yeah, totally.
Which
Yep.
which makes you an awesome asset. I can be sure of that. I suspect, like me, if it involves a lot of planning and requires a lot of order and organization and like, no, slow down. We have to make a good decision here. We need to look at the data, like that kind of realm. That probably makes you want to basically roll your eyes up in the back of your head.
Yeah. Well, it makes me want to jump onto a different project.
Yeah. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
why I'm constantly like buying domains and like starting something new every.
Oh, bro, I have like 50 domains. I have like 50 domains across 2 different registrars, and
Yep.
and I've got 13 Substack publications, bro.
Yes.
Yeah, just invention wonder, man. Just always doing that.
Yep.
Dude, this is so cool, man. So you're kind of a fire starter, because what I see there, like what I've noticed is, especially using that working genius kind of grid, the tenacity person is the finisher, right? The tenacity person is that person that can just grind it out and just yank, like carry that heavy burden across the finish line. That's that tenacity person. But the enabler often can be very productive, right? But it comes from a slightly different place. It's not just like I have a tolerance to do anything. It's if it's in my wheelhouse and it's serving my people, I find great motivation in myself to take dreams and make them into a reality.
Yes, absolutely.
So you can be very productive, but it's in a nurturing way, right? Like I can just picture these people coming to you and saying, "Hey, we got 2 weeks. Go crazy, man. Do whatever you want. Just get it done." And you're thinking, "Oh, I will get it done." And you're going to love it. You're going to love it because I'm going to serve you extremely well, right?
Yep.
I love you. I love your brand. I love what you're about, and I'm gonna take good care of you. And bam! All of a sudden, 2 weeks later, fully functional brand happening, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yep. So those are the places that you look for. And then Jordan had the same thing. He needed. That probably was more of your enablement, right? Like, hey, Jordan, you know what he's about. You have a love and respect for and affection for what he's about. Then there's this piece that's missing or broken. Who can help me?
Yeah.
Everett's like,
Yeah.
Let me
100%.
in, coach. Put me in, coach.
Totally.
Yeah, dude, love your gift, man. I love your gift. And these interviews, man, it's one of my favorite things to just unearth that special gift, man. Because I think you're a designer, you're an artist and a designer first, I think, and maybe a caretaker first, a helper, but then you're a marketer and a branding person second, because those things are kind of inseparable, those gifts.
Yeah.
Right? You can't be good at branding if you don't understand marketing strategy and audience.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I was actually talking with my old boss from the nonprofit that I used to work for, because I've been able to like come back to the nonprofit and be able to do some coaching and some consulting and things like that for them. And like, that was one of the things that we were talking through is, like, the thing that I realized and the benefit that I had in the position that I was in was because we had, we didn't have a crazy budget for, big campaigns and branding and all these things that, I look at today and people pay me for today. It's like, whenever I was doing it inside the nonprofit, I was basically like, okay, I got to figure out all of these pieces. I got to figure out the art and creative piece, but I also have to figure out the actual marketing piece and how it's connecting to people. Because if I don't, then it doesn't, like, I can make something beautiful and I can copy, I can go and just copy the next nonprofit or the next church or the next business or whatever and just do a logo like that or do a campaign like that or whatever. But if I don't actually have a pulse on our people and how to connect those dots with people that we're actually trying to serve as an organization or as a business, then it doesn't matter how beautiful I make it if it's not actually connecting with people.
Yes. And I would say that this phrase popped in my brain as you were talking, like strategic artist, because I think a lot of us as artists have a hard time. Like it almost feels insulting to the craft to have to think about strategy. Because it's like, no, I'm here to create beauty. And I think I think there's some of us that are created to just create beauty and to not be thinking strategically.
Totally.
But I think it's equally valuable and beautiful to have some of us who are strategic artists who are like, yes, I want to create beauty, but I also have to think about how to accomplish an endeavor through the beauty, right?
Yeah.
Or leverage the beauty in the execution of an endeavor that draws people in or gets their attention or causes them to engage in some way. And so, I see you as bridging. You said bridge early on, that word bridge, and I think you are a bridge.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's I think there's just so much truth to what you're just saying, because whenever I was in school, like junior high, high school, and I was in art classes or in a photography class or in, whatever, it was like there was part of me that was like, oh, I might be an artist, I might be whatever. But it was really hard for me to connect the dots to the purpose of the art. So so art just for the sake of art, or beauty just for the sake of beauty. There are absolutely things that are needed for that. But it's it was really hard for me to I felt like the blank canvas that I was looking at in order to paint something or create something whenever I was in that setting was really difficult for me, because I couldn't connect the dots to the purpose. There was, it felt like there was no purpose in what I was doing. The purpose in that setting was a grade, whatever. But it was whenever I was in junior high making the duct tape bags, there was a purpose, people were buying it and there was a purpose to what I was doing. And now it's and whenever I got into the nonprofit, I didn't just go to whenever I graduated high school, I didn't just go to design school or art school or whatever. I jumped into ministry, I jumped into this nonprofit space, and then I was kind of thrown in the deep end when it came to marketing and creativity. And with that came okay, I automatically from the jump realized there was a purpose to what I was creating. And so therefore I could grit through and have tenacity to be able to learn Premiere and learn Photoshop and learn, all these different tools to be able to do what I needed to do, because there was a purpose attached to it. And I think that's just always how I've been driven and always been bend is to create with purpose.
Yeah, create with purpose, create strategically, create on behalf of a vision to move the vision forward. But there needs to be a vision. And I'm having revelation as we're talking, right? That there are just different kinds of artists, and that is one kind of artist. And I think, again, it's important to emphasize equally precious in the kingdom, right? To those who are creating from a different reason, that maybe progress isn't the goal necessarily, or the progress of an endeavor isn't the goal. It's just the beauty itself is the goal, and the awe itself is the goal. And I'm good friends with an artist like that, man. He does both, but his name's Marvin Harrell, and this brother understands awe better than anybody I know, and bathes in awe, and knows how to call his own heart to awe, and for art to be the outpouring of that awe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's so good.
And to use it to draw other people to awe, which it's beautiful. It's just a different calling. You know what I mean? But
totally.
Equally gorgeous.
Totally. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to Marvin, man. I hope you know how much I love you, brother. So dude, this has been incredible time. So we're going to start to wrap up. Man, I love the gift that's inside of you though, man. Love to hear exactly how it works. What advice or wisdom do you have for people? Because the people that we're speaking to, and that are going to be tend to be drawn to these interviews are people who are, working out that tension between vocational work and the gospel calling and faith, and how to have a life where all of those things are firing on all cylinders, right? Excellence in the craft, and also authenticity in faith and worship. Any advice for people out there that are on the journey with you?
Yeah, man. I think being able to navigate, especially in the creative space, there's a lot of times that for the sake of the church or for the sake of ministry or for the sake of even just like friends, you end up doing a lot of work for free or a lot of work for very, very little. And I think my piece of encouragement in that realm is like, first off, like when it comes to the stuff that you're charging for, charge what you're worth. Like charge what you're worth in. And there are times that I've not done that and I felt the repercussions of that, you know.
Yeah.
And whether it's on me or now with a family, like I've seen the damage and the toll that it does whenever I like take on a free project or take on a project that's not, that I didn't charge enough for, whatever, and I get to the end of it and I'm way overworked and way underpaid and my family's taken the toll for it.
Yes.
And so that's something that I'm actively working against on a regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think like whether you charge or whether you do work for free, whether it's creative work or any other type, whatever, if you're like, like Jordan says a lot, like, obviously from scripture, like let your yes be yes and your no be no. Like allow yourself to say, okay, I'm going to do this, and whether I'm getting paid for it or not, I'm saying yes to this. And if I'm saying yes to this, then I want to be able to give my all to it. And give, and that all may be different proportionally to other things in your life or other things in that season or other projects that you've done or other people that you've served. But whatever it is that you've determined in your own heart to give it all, and so if it's a paid project and you're being paid handsomely for it, then, obviously serve people well. But if you signed up to, do something less or do something for free, then don't let your yes be yes and your no be no, and allow the payment of the education of the things that you maybe regret to be that versus, just doing a, halfway job on a project.
Yes. Oh, brother, that's such good advice, man. Thank you, Everett. Thank you for sharing your story.
Absolutely,
Thank
man.
you for sharing your life. Thank you for sharing the beautiful gift that's inside of you in the kingdom. Appreciate you very much. And everybody, thanks for joining us for this episode, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.